Are they gonna kiss? You gotta kiss your own clone just to see what it's like, right? Hello, welcome to Sound and Fury Book Reviews. As usual, I am Tina. Today I'm doing a book review of Mickey 7 by Edward Ashton. This is a sci-fi that came out last year, this year. I don't really know. I don't even know who the publisher is. I forgot to write this down on my little point form notes. So this is a great start to this video. Just a warning, this video is probably going to be chaotic because my little point form notes for this are quite wild. So I was suggested I read this book by Scott at Book Invasion, and I also listened to it on Audible. It was fun. It's a fun, light sci-fi. It's an entertaining romp that's great for casual reading or for those new to sci-fi. So, what is it about? Mickey 7 is an expendable, a disposable employee on a human expedition sent to colonize the ice-world Niflheim. Whenever there's a mission that's too dangerous, even suicidal, the crew turns to Mickey. After one iteration dies, a new body is regenerated with most of his memories intact. After 6 deaths, Mickey 7 understands the terms of his deal and why it was the only colonial position fulfilled when he took it. On a fairly routine scouting mission, Mickey 7 goes missing and is presumed dead. By the time he returns to the colony base, surprisingly held back by native life, Mickey 7's fate has been sealed. There's a new clone, Mickey 8, reporting for expendable duties. The idea of duplicate expendables is universally loathed, and if caught, they will likely be thrown into the recycler for protein. Mickey 7 must keep his double a secret from the rest of the colony. Meanwhile, life on Niflheim is getting worse. The atmosphere is unsuitable for humans, food is in short supply, and terraforming is going poorly. The native species are growing curious about their new neighbors, and that curiosity has Commander Marshall very afraid. Ultimately, the survival of both life forms will come down to Mickey 7. That is, if he can just keep from dying for good. Fun, right? I have always been interested in cloning ever since my impressionable teenage self stumbled across Aeon Flux, the show. Can we say sexual awakening? I must have been 17 when I watched that, and it transformed my worldview. And then when I watched DS9, I always found the Vorta fascinating with their flash imprints and all that stuff. I really like the episode when my Vorta boy, I can't remember his name, the guy played by Jeffrey Combs, this guy, when he tries to escape being an expendable, basically, along with that episode when they managed to accidentally lock down the station. I love that episode. Anyway, no, I haven't watched any of the new Star Trek stuff, like Picard. Someday I will, but I don't have A, the time, and B, the channel or service or whatever. Anyway, what am I doing here? Where am I? I don't know. Flash imprints, cloning, Mickey 7. So, anyway, while flash imprints and cloning yourself so that your body is expendable isn't a new concept in sci-fi, it is one I enjoy very much. So I was quite into the premise of this book. I told you this review is all over the place. I'm sorry. Just let me say right off the bat that I found this novel to be fun. It's light, easy to follow, and entertaining. Is it brilliant? No, but not everything has to be such to be enjoyable, right? Marvel movies are far from cinematic masterpieces in terms of theme, and let's be honest here, plot half the time. But are they an absolute blast? Yes, of course they are, especially when you've had a THC drink. Anyway, I love a good Marvel movie, and this book fits that kind of entertainment. Hardcore sci-fi fans might find it a bit simplistic, and it's not a hard sci-fi by any means, despite the more realistic science than most kind of generic sci-fi. But one thing it is entirely digestible. It's fun and short and easy to read, listen to. Mickey wasn't my favorite character of all time, but I didn't hate him. Now, don't come after me for this, but every time I read a book about an average, non-confrontational white man who ends up doing extraordinary things, I can't help but imagine it's an author insertion story. That's how I felt about Project Hail Mary too, which is what I'd compare this book to in terms of prose and style. Are self-insertion stories necessarily bad? I mean, no, honestly, it doesn't bother me. I don't care. I just find it kind of funny. I also think this might be the case because Mickey doesn't really change as the story progresses. His end decision isn't based on growth on his part. He simply realizes something about his surroundings that he can use to his advantage, which is fine. We don't need every single book to be about sacrificial lambs and heartrending sorrow and people coming into some realization that changes their lives. Sometimes people are just the same at the end of the story, and you know what? That's perfectly fine. This was actually kind of nice for a change. I liked the other characters. Marshall was a hard ass that everyone has worked for or can recognize from like military movies. And Berto was interesting because I wasn't sure what his deal was. I also kind of liked him despite him being kind of a dick. I was like, why is this guy single? Nasha and Kat were cool in that they were military women, making neither the token women warrior. One was a fighter pilot and the other security. But what I didn't understand was why they were into Mickey. By his accounts, he's not super attractive. He seems kind of lazy. He makes stupid decisions at times, and he's hardly a charmer. I'm not sure why these two ladies were flocking to him, but then again, self-insertion story. Also, there's only like 200 people or something on the base at the time, so maybe the options were limited. I mean, sometimes you want to take the kind of boring, generic dude versus a guy that will treat you like crap. No one in this book is particularly deep, so I did appreciate that Mickey does no rescuing of said ladies, and neither are prized for him at the end. This book avoids all those problematic tropes that sometimes generic sci-fi written by dudes falls into, and I super applaud it for that. This is a great trend. Please keep doing this, writers. The story, though, is a little bit weak. While the premise is well conceptualized and interesting on an existential level, the rest of the novel is a bit empty. A great deal of the novel focuses on Mickey being hungry, hiding around the complex, and giving us world-building backstories. I was more heavily invested in the backstories than Mickey himself, and the couch joke of the novel that employers find their employees expendable was a bit too heavy-handed for me. I was like, oh, okay. The ending also just kind of happens, and most of the resolution is told via one character monologuing to another. Given that, honestly, not a lot happens in this book, as I've said, I was expecting a real stunner of an ending, but it just kind of is like, okay, that's it. There's also nowhere near as much information on the creepers as I would have liked. My obsession with aliens and all. I was kind of like, I want to know more about them. Despite these complaints, they're not really complaints, and these are like kind of minor things. I did enjoy it. As I said, it's fun, requires no emotional investment, and the concept is fun and cool. And I'm actually going to listen to the next one on audiobook after 2 others I have on my roster. I liked it, and apparently there's going to be a movie or a show about it. I mean, that should be fun. Not like I have time for it, but someday I'll watch it probably. Now, before I wrap up, one thing I will push back on, and this is kind of a dorky, nerdy thing. Despite how the arguments are similar, I don't believe the Ship of Theseus was the right comparison in the novel because, in that thought experiment, the ship was replaced slowly over time until every single board was different than the ship that started the journey, hence the argument question of whether it's the same ship that started out. Mickey isn't being replaced part by part over time in the same way. His question is more about whether a copy of yourself is still yourself. For example, the argument that in Star Trek again, when they beam up, they're dematerialized. That's basically just and their data is being sent to the new location where they're being rebuilt. Is that the same person? It's kind of like more like that question than about the Ship of Theseus. Ship of Theseus would work better if you're talking about, I don't know, General Grievous. That dude was replaced over time to be a robot, though I guess his brain and heart are still intact, right? Yeah. So he wasn't exactly fully replaced yet. Was that his goal, to have everything replaced? What was that dude's deal? Actually, I do know what his deal is. I watched all of Clone Wars. Captain Rex, totally my boy. I would tell you his story, but it's way too long. But he was a humanoid dude at one point, in case you were all wondering about General Grievous's motives and or situation since 2005 when Revenge of the Sith came out. You're welcome. He was originally a regular man who was replaced by robot parts. There you go. You can die fulfilled. To counter, there is one thing I did love about the book, and it's a spoiler, so if you don't want to hear it, I thank you now for watching. If you do, here we go. I have to say that when Mickey got down into a threesome with his clone and his girlfriend, I laughed so hard. I loved that. Because I'm some sort of weirdo, I was wondering that the whole time. I was like, are they gonna kiss? You gotta kiss your own clone just to see what it's like, right? If you liked that scene, you'll likely enjoy Aeon Flux, the show. Now, it's not something I recommend to people generally because it's weird. Really, really, really weird. The weirdest. Also kind of the best. But yeah, so if you like really weird stuff and aren't afraid of strange 90s animation, totally check out Aeon Flux. But if Mickey 7 is your foray into sci-fi, do not watch Aeon Flux. You can watch the Charlize Theron movie version. That one's a toned down version of that. It's not even weird at all. And it has Charlize Theron. So there you go. Yeah, so if you stuck around for that, thank you for watching. And I will be sending the review of Antimatter Blues. Is that what it's called? In 2 months or something. So yeah.